I was asked by somebody if I could explain the show. And I said, well, it's basically like a Bible study and Comic-Con had an awkward homeschool kid and Chris got custody.
Yep, that sounds about right.
So speaking of which, do you want to start?
All right, Yale, I guess let's kick this thing off. Pause for intro. Wait, what was it? Ma. Yeah, I've seen High School Musical.
What was that? No, I know I know what it's from, but like, how did they do it? I can't do it without laughing.
No, they would go like this with like ma, and then throw your hands out. Yeah, I don't mess around.
Always right here beside me. You like it way more than I did.
All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of the Sanctum Sanctorum Podcast, where comics and Christ culture collide. I am your host, Chris.
And I'm the better host, Joey.
The most superior host couldn't be here today, so you're
That's
stuck
right.
with the two of us.
The hostess supreme is not here.
The supreme hostess.
Oh, well. Welcome back to yet another episode where questionable life decisions are made. Speaking of which, you're here. Thank you, listener.
Yes, and this is your very first questionable life decision.
At least of today. We're glad you're here. We're kicking off another great episode. We got some great stuff going on in this episode, which we always pretend like we have to reveal the title as if it's not in the episode when they click it, as if it's not the first thing that pops up because they're subscribed, which if you're not subscribed, what are you doing with your life? Come on, subscribe. Hit the button, hit the notification. Let's go. Get on this. We'd love to let you know every time a new episode drops.
We would absolutely love to. And also, just so we can, move on from this whole thing, that's what we're doing.
We're doing it.
Gotham by Gaslight. Now, this is the comic, obviously, but we're doing the movie version.
Yep, because that's what we do on this show. Movies.
Pause right here. Go read this book. Then go watch the movie. It's only about 75 minutes long. And then come back.
You came back.
Welcome back.
Welcome.
Hey, how was it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Want to hear what we think? We're about to tell you.
Here we go.
Not about to tell you. Before we
before that, let's do a culture moment of comic proportions. What do you got for us today, Christophanes?
Well, here's what I was thinking. Because we're doing Gotham by Gaslight, and, I'm not going to get into the good and bad yet, but the movie itself is a little different than the comic.
Sure.
There's some different character development, addition of characters, the story moves a little differently, but the bones are there.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to adapting, when it comes to a director or a writer adapting a pre-existing product like a book, a comic, a video game, whatever it may be, and the story is already there, is it really their job to get super creative with what's already loved? Now, to me, it's one thing if you're taking just the character and you're saying, listen, I'm making a Superman movie, I'm making a Spider-Man movie, I'm writing my own story, I'm just using the characters in that world. No problem. Do whatever you want with it then.
Sure.
But if you're saying, I would say the MCU is probably the most guilty of this.
Very guilty.
If you're saying we're adapting Age of Ultron, we're adapting Civil War, we're adapting Daredevil Born Again, we're adapting Gotham by Gaslight, and it's not like it's laid out for you exactly the way it should be, and you take very creative liberties with it, I feel like that is when it can become an issue. But what do you think?
I think it depends on the extent of the stretch. So Civil War is a perfect example of this. Not at all what that comic book is.
No, except the very bones of Iron Man versus Captain America. That's really it.
Right. So what they used it for was hype, building to their own narrative. It's their property. They can do what they want, essentially, but you can't call it that because it's not like the comic line came out last week and you're just going to go, oh, by the way, this also works for us. It's like these are long-standing comic lines with in-depth character development, motivations, and story arcs that take you to natural progressions. I think of
major impacts.
Yeah, I think of what's going to happen.
The future of these characters.
What's going to happen with Secret Wars, where we're headed? Like that's a natural progression, but they're going to pull it off again. Where, yeah, the Avengers and the X-Men are going to meet and going to fight, but that's not the point of what they're setting up. And so now you've used the name once again because it's recognizable IP, but it's not the story. Secret Invasion did this as well, too. Nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing. And it was horrible.
Well, I mean, I think Thunderbolts is doing that. They, even character choices, like in the Multiverse of Madness, when they revealed the Illuminati. Now, some of it was correct, but not all of it was, because it didn't fit the universe of the MCU. And I understand that, like, since we harped on it, we could take Civil War. Civil War involved almost every hero and villain that had ever been introduced in Marvel Comics. I understand that they didn't have access to or the need to use characters yet, like the Fantastic Four or Ghost Rider, the Young Avengers, and all that stuff. I understand that it had to fit in their world, but then don't call it that,
right?
Because I love that comic, and I went in expecting Civil War. Spider-Man was a huge cornerstone of that story.
Yep, the linchpin of the story. And they used it to get him into the world, which was sort of cool. But at the same time, I feel like it's just a cheap Band-Aid to garner interest.
Yes.
When maybe the story isn't as tight.
Yes, 100%. I think that, the X-Men universe tended to do that to a degree as well, with some of their titles like
The Last
X-Men Apocalypse. Dark Phoenix, all that kind of stuff. It's like, you're taking these really well-known stories that people really love, and you're trying to garner interest by being like, look, we're doing Age of Apocalypse, we're doing Days of Future Past, we're doing Age of Ultron, all and this stuff, like,
oh crap, awesome, I love that. And then we go and we're like, well, the movie didn't really work out.
Right, so you'd only called it that because you introduced this character, or because it was like, well, I can see some things are there. So it's...
And you can say that it's not just a comic book problem, right? Like, anytime, it's happened in Harry Potter, it happens in classic literature too. Like, you take a step and a leap away from what the original IP is, because you've got your own narrative. But there's got to be a way, and I don't know what the solution is, but there's got to be a way to say an adapted take on Moby Dick, an adapted take on Jekyll and Hyde. And, when you throw it in there, everybody expects the original, and you can't do that because you don't deliver that.
But I think the difference with some of that is that, yes, you're adapting, in that case, you're adapting a book, but I understand that you can't always put everything from the book on film. So I understand maybe making edits of, like, cutting certain things.
Sure.
But if they said, this is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or this is the Fellowship of the Ring, or, Moby Dick, or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and you just use the idea of it and told a completely different story, that's when I feel like this is becoming something else. Actually, a Harry Potter example of that would be Fantastic Beasts. That whole series is called Fantastic Beasts, and then subtitle. Only the first movie really had anything to do with him discovering these creatures. Then it became a we have to stop the villain and we form a team and we're a secret spy now and all these things. Like, it's a cool story, and it wasn't exactly adapted from anything, but now you've like written yourself into a corner, so you have to make all these weird subtitles but still call it Fantastic Beasts. You know what I mean? I feel like the Super Mario movie did that too, the animated one. It wasn't the story of the video game, because the video game didn't really have a story. It was just Mario rescuing Peach from Bowser. This had him going into the Mushroom Kingdom and then having to train to be a guy and then having to learn, Bowser was in love with Peach, and it's like, okay, you're taking a lot of liberties with something that is already spelled out for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can't say that it feels lazy, because the easiest thing would be to, especially if it's a comic book, it's already a storyboard. Like, maybe you need to flesh out some of the dialogue a little bit, and that's fine, but it's already storyboarded. There's no reason you can't just put that to film.
Yeah.
Which is often why I feel like, especially with DC, the animated movies usually are better, because they're pretty good at doing that. But at the same time, it's like, this is already written for you. Why are you calling it that and then taking so many liberties with it? Like, it feels like you're trying to, like, reel me in. You're putting a lore out there to reel me in, and it feels disingenuous, because then it's not what I was expecting. You're taking something that I love and you're doing what you want with it, but you're not being upfront with that.
Right. It's fan bait, and it works, unfortunately, but I guess for us as the fans, we sort of just need to know, no, it's 9 times out of 10, we're not going to honor the source material. So just go in with that knowledge instead of waiting to get disappointed.
Yeah, it's just not fair, because I want to see some of these. I would love to see some of these properties be accurately adapted,
Yeah.
So it's just a bummer when it's like, oh, you got me all excited and now nothing. I think you need to stop adapting and just say inspired by.
Inspired by a true story.
I love the idea of Captain America versus Iron Man, so I'm going to take that idea and write my own story around it. No problem. That's fine. Inspired by the events in Civil War. Okay. Now I won't go into it thinking you're going to put panel to screen,
Did you hear about the hero that saved a child from a burning building? Yes, and it inspired me to write a movie about a gorilla.
Yes?
That's a Mitch Hedberg.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about how inspired by a true story doesn't necessarily have to be connected to it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's true. I saw him live one time when I went to see Conan
Did
O'Brien.
You?
Yeah, he
No
was.
way.
I didn't know who he was at the time, but he was the instead of a musical guest, they had him on the show, and so he did one of my favorite jokes ever, because you know his whole style of
I
joke.
sure do.
And my favorite that he ever did was about escalators. When it's like, I hate when people say that escalators are broken. They really only become something else. There should be a sign that just says, escalator, now stairs. Sorry for the convenience. Well, that's amazing,
he was great.
He was so good. So good.
But audience, what do you think? Drop us a comment on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube about what you think about misleading comic names.
And what is your most and least favorite adaptation? Or what do you think is the most accurate that went from, we're taking this story and doing it, and they actually followed through? What do you think? We can't wait to hear from you. I personally wait with anticipation.
Nice.
Thank you.
I can tell you what's not close to comic. Actually, I don't know, because I've never read the comic, but I got a plot synopsis, and it's a pretty good one.
Hit it.
All right. Cue the deadly music. Here we go. Gotham's skyline. Gas is in the street lamps. Regret is in the sewers. and lust is in the air. In the Victorian era, Batman trades his grappling gun for some vintage vengeance and tries to punch his way through a Jack the Ripper crossover nobody asked for. No female is safe from the Ripper. Anyone from exotic dancers to nuns. In an animated spectacle that gives a nod to the Rogues Gallery and a clever Easter egg hunt right off the bat. The bat, Chris.
No, I heard. Okay. I heard it. I absolutely heard it.
Can the Dark Knight put his detective skills to work and uncover the serial killer's true commission? Or will this knife-wielding maniac rip a hole in our hearts? It's as if Sherlock Holmes, Sweeney Todd, and Batman the Animated Series got drunk together in a foggy alley in this dark, dramatic, unhinged cartoon that is not for kids, Batman, Gotham by Gaslight. Dun, dun, dun!
Well, that was something.
Always is.
Will he complete his commission? Usually gets slapped for something like that.
In the face.
All right, well, this stars the vocal talents of Bruce Greenwood, Jennifer Carpenter, Anthony Stewart Head, Scott Patterson, and was directed by Sam Liu, who is known for doing a lot of those DC animated movies, and usually does a very good job.
Yeah. I have a few good things, but not a lot.
Well, before we get into good, bad, and anything else, I have to make a reference and an apology way back in time to our very first episode where we covered Batman the Long Halloween, and I said that Commissioner James Gordon is always the stalwart character, and he's always the good guy, and he's always, you can always rely on Jim Gordon, even when other characters let you down. Jim Gordon and Alfred were the ones you could always rely on. And if you've seen this, or as we'll, inevitably get to in our good and bad discussion, this is the exception to that. So
very much so.
My apologies if I let anybody astray.
But that is actually one of my good things.
All right, well, let's kick it right off.
Here we go. I think it's great that Jack the Ripper is the villain, and it's brilliant that it's Gordon. It's great. You didn't like it?
It feels... Okay, so that's one of the things that's different from the comic. It wasn't Gordon in the comic. And it just feels like you took a very... steadfast character, and you wanted to make him evil. It's like another Batman story where where the idea is that Alfred created all of the Gotham villains because Batman needed an outlet, and that he himself is the Joker.
Yeah.
Because Batman needed a foil. And it just feels like that. Like, I understand that you thought this was an interesting twist, but I didn't care for it.
Worked for me. I actually didn't see it coming.
Yeah, but I think it's more interesting than the comic version. In the comic, it's just like an old family friend that is helping Bruce, and then it's like, oh my God, you're the bad guy. What? But
yeah,
I don't know. It being Gordon just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know.
I liked the clever nods to the Rogues Gallery and to the kids. Like right off the bat, the three kids are Dickie, Jason, and Tim. I was like, ha ha, I caught that one.
Yeah, I love that.
And then
the Cock Robins.
And then you get the Rogues Gallery. You get Kyle, Dent, Strange, Bullock, Gordon. Like all of it's great.
Poison Ivy's in there. Cyrus Gold, who becomes Solomon Grundy. Yeah, you got a bunch of them in there.
I like that we are rated R, and we are rated R pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
The last thing I have is I liked the bat signal at the end.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
And that's it.
Actually, I have a lot of the same things. You could tell that this is very influenced by Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I said with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I love the Victorian setting. I think that that's just such a great setting for, mystery stories and these kinds of things. And I think that of all the superheroes, Batman fits very well in this time period. Like, obviously with some adjustment, but I think that he makes the most sense. Given that he doesn't have superpowers, I think that he would make the most sense in this universe.
This wouldn't work with Superman. Like, you can't throw Captain America into this. Yeah. This works for Batman.
Yeah, it wouldn't work with any other hero, really. I think that the movie is better than the comic book.
I don't have a barometer on that, but I'll go with you on that.
I think the movie's better than the comic book. Also, back to the Sherlock Holmes thing. I forgot that Batman even says that
he does mention Sherlock.
Holmes was one of his mentors, and they have things like the note he sends to Alfred is the Dancing Men, which is a Sherlock Holmes adventure. They talk about this. Gordon mentions a 7% solution, which is a Holmes story. I like that. I thought Selena Kyle in this was awesome. I thought she was great. I love the dynamic between Bruce and Selena, and Batman and Selena without her exactly being Catwoman. I thought they did her well.
It was fine.
The Batsuit is cool.
Yeah,
I think I like the I don't want to say the update, the down date, the down dating. Yeah, making it fit in the style of the world you're setting it in, I thought was really cool.
The back dating, sure.
Back dating, yeah, thank you. I knew down dating felt wrong. And the steampunk motorcycle I thought was pretty cool. The bat cycle with steampunk, and yeah, I think my favorite thing was the 3 Robins. I thought was pretty cool. They were also kind of like the Baker Street Irregulars, so yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
And that is what I have for my good.
That was quick.
I don't have a lot of good, but I don't have a lot of bad either. But I think that the movie as a whole is good, but to pinpoint different things is sometimes hard with animation because you can't point out like, oh, this person's acting or this person's, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
These special effects
we're commenting on story. We're commenting on accuracy, and we're commenting on visual aspects of it. And acting really does allow you to take it to another level. Mm-hmm. But I don't have any other.
I mean, there were a lot of little Batman references, which I thought were fun. And I don't think I don't love that it was Gordon, but it's better than the comic. But I like that it's Batman versus Jack the Ripper.
Yeah,
I think it's cool.
That's great.
But I also have some bad with that. So
I do too. And we're going to hear all about it right after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Precision Cutlery by Ripper. Surgical accuracy for whatever your nighttime hobbies may be. Are you excavating a roast, edging your hedges, or eliminating entire sections of Gotham's population? Then you, my friend, need the blade trusted by discerning gentlemen all across Gotham. Hand-forged in the darkest alleys by the most employable blacksmiths, our blades will take your activities from hack jobs to unsolved murders overnight. Precision Cutlery by Ripper. Because in Gotham, it's not just about making a cut, it's about making a statement. Operators are standing by, so call now at 1-800-STABBY-1. That's 1-800-782-2291. Ask your parents' permission before calling. Each sold separately. Batteries not included. Product is not a real product. This product is not recommended if you experience anger, jealousy, holy vengeance, and rage. Ask your doctor if Ripper products are right for you.
Wow. That ending to that might be one of the best. That was a good one.
Yeah.
A very good one. Now, before we continue going, how familiar are you or were you before this with the story of Jack the Ripper?
I know the legend. Yeah, I know it pretty well.
Okay. Because I've always been, I don't want to say I love Jack the Ripper because he was an evil person, but I've always been fascinated by the story, the unsolvedness of it, the different people it could have been. And again, the setting, Jack the Ripper, again, is one of those, like we talked about a couple episodes ago, that has crossed over with a lot of other characters in, pastiche stories,
Yep. No, but I love the idea of it, and yet I found so many problems. It's not an exhaustive list, but there were things where I wanted to love it and I couldn't look the other way.
Yeah. Can I just, you can go first, but I want to just say my big problem is that it's not, you took Jack the Ripper out of London.
That's my number one
my biggest
issue
problem.
with this. Where are we?
We're in Gotham. We're in America.
Are we?
Which is fine.
We're in London, but we're in New York City. Where is Gotham? Like, what is happening? There's Cockney accents. Sometimes there's not. What is going on?
He shouldn't have been Jack the Ripper. It would have been fine if he was inspired by Jack the Ripper, or if he wanted to take the legend, or if he came from London and now was, doing his thing in the States. That also would have been fine. But to call him Jack the Ripper and to say that, like, oh yeah, this is part of the appeal of the Victorian era is making it Victorian Europe and specifically Victorian England. So
right, America doesn't have a Victorian age.
They do. I mean, they were around at the same time, but it's not.
Sure, but when you think Victorian, you don't think America.
Exactly. So they should have either, since you were already doing this, weird Elseworlds story. Which, by the way, this is the very first Elseworlds story before Elseworlds was a moniker that they used. But if you do, you might as well have just moved the whole thing to London. Put Batman in the Gotham district of London.
He's visiting a wealthy diplomat, and Batman is seen. Like, there's plenty of ways to do it. It's not a Gotham story.
No, and that was my issue with the inclusion of Jack the Ripper. Cool idea. This had a weird execution because they said it in the States and it shouldn't have been. So,
yep.
As much as I liked Selena Kyle in this, the musical number was weird.
My God.
It was out of nowhere. It went on too long. Like, we already knew she was kind of a flapper showgirl kind of thing. I didn't need it. Like, we had we had a brief thing of Poison Ivy in the beginning doing her performance.
Yeah.
Why wasn't it just that long? I didn't need a whole musical number. That was so bizarre.
Because they wanted to get it to 90 minutes, and it must have been at 86. And they thought, ooh, a song will take care of that.
Yeah, I did not care for that.
Not needed.
All right, here's a weird writing thing. Gordon is Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Why does he wake up in a panic after having a dream about killing his wife?
To
mislead us.
Mislead the audience, yeah.
But that doesn't make sense. It would have made it doesn't make sense because we see him wake up in a panic. If he had just, expositioned and said, boy, I didn't sleep well last night. I was having nightmares about this Ripper case. Okay. Yeah, sold. I mean, you're the cop on the case. That makes sense. Absolutely. You're probably having nightmares about it.
Well, they probably thought this actually accomplishes the same thing, but tonally it actually disconnects the audience from...
Well, it's not even that it accomplishes the same thing, but it doesn't make sense when you get to the reveal of the killer. When you find out he's the killer, why is he having nightmares about his own crime? There's nothing about when he reveals himself as, like, his true nature, there's nothing about him that seems unsure or regretful about what he's doing because it's his holy mission. So it doesn't make sense for him to have these conflicting dreams about it. Because you could even say, well, the dream was because it was about his wife and he loves her even if he hates all the other women. Not really, because he burns her.
Sure.
So that just didn't make any sense for me. The animation was a bit of an issue because it's too clean looking. Like, it should. Now, again, you don't have the London fog, which would have been helpful. But everything just looked very crisp and bright, and I feel like if they had dinged it up a little bit, that would have... That's just a preference. It doesn't hurt the story at all.
Sure.
I just think aesthetically, if you had, made it look a little bit dirtier, that could have been kind of interesting. It would have been an interesting creative choice.
Understood.
There was something missing in the end. Gotham Fair burns down. Gordon immolates himself. They, Selina and Batman and the Robins ride off, and there's no like conclusion to that. Like it's just like, oh man, like the thing burned down. Well, don't worry, we could build something better or something bigger, whatever. But there's no allusion to like what that could be. So it felt like it just stopped. Didn't feel like it ended. It felt like it stopped.
Yeah. Connected to that, I have, why is every end battle start as a simple fist fight and end with an entire environment being destroyed?
Yeah.
Like, it's so old hat at this point, but even when it was happening here, I'm like, nah, this just wouldn't happen. These two would just end in a fist fight. One of them would knock the other one out and drag them to jail. You wouldn't have a Ferris wheel caught on fire.
Yeah, no, that seemed a little excessive. You're right.
Yeah.
And I think it could have been a better detective story than it was. It was fine, but I think that, like, Batman just continued to get led in the wrong direction. And I think it could have been, you could have really done some, like, detective story in this. And, like, if you're already leaning into Sherlock Holmes, there's no reason that you shouldn't have just leaned into it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, make Batman a genius. He's got a genius level intellect. I feel like I don't want him to know that it's Gordon right away, but
no, but we're still waiting for that genius level intellect to be shown in any Batman rendition.
Yeah,
I've never seen it,
but
I just haven't.
And the problem is that you could say, well, when Batman is young, he hasn't developed it yet. Fair enough, but we've also seen Batman who's been at it for a while, and he doesn't seem to have a genius level intellect either. So.
And he ain't that smart.
What are we doing? That's really it for my bad. I really like this movie, but I think that there are things that just could have been better or different that would have really kicked it up a level,
Yeah. I have everything you had and 3 different ones. You talked about how Bruce was young. Given that he's young, I hate Bruce Greenwood for Batman.
Yes.
He is an older actor. He's an experienced actor, and he's taken roles like Pike in Star Trek. He's various commanders and chiefs. He's presidents. Like, I can't unhear it. And he's not the Batman voice, given that this is a young Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, so the Tomorrowverse, which is the series of movies that just ended, has Jensen Ackles as him from Supernatural and The Boys, and he would have been a better choice because he's young enough to still be young Batman. Bruce Greenwood is in his 60s
at least.
So it's like, come on,
he did a fine job. It was just, I know the world enough and I know the actors, so when I saw the two, it hurt my brain to think, oh yeah, just suspend your disbelief. Nah, I really can't.
Yeah, and I know that it's only voices, but I think that when you're pairing a Bruce Greenwood Batman with a Jennifer Carpenter, who you would know from Dexter, as Selina Kyle, and they're the love interests, that's just a bizarre pairing. And I know it's only their voices being used, but I think vocally you can hear that it's a weird matchup. It's a weird pairing.
We talked about where is this. We also need to talk about when is this. The technology is just inconsistent. Like it wants to be steampunk, but it isn't at times. Like it's a cool concept, but it's not a tonally consistent thumbprint of when this is happening, because you've put it in Victorian era, but it's also got some like tech that he shouldn't have.
Like what? Other than the motorcycle, which I will give a pass to because of the inventor aspect. But what?
That was the main thing.
Okay, so the motorcycle was the issue.
Yeah, it's like, look, we got horses. Motorcycles came after cars, didn't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, probably, but I think that's the idea, is that he invented, this way of traveling quicker than horseback. But I do think that Batman on horseback would have been cooler.
Yeah. I think that's what they wrestled with. They didn't want to put him on a horse, and then it was like, well, he needs a motorcycle.
Or again, like LXG, if you're gonna do steampunk, lean all the way into it. I'm here for it. I'm not gonna knock it. You have my full support. Lean into it though.
The last thing I have is that we needed breadcrumbs to Gordon, because by the time it got revealed, it was whiplash. Like I said, I didn't see it coming. But that's not because I wasn't paying attention. That's because they did zero setup. And you'd say, well, it was like, it was the reveal. Yes and no. And the reason I say no is because of the scene you pointed out. You went out of your way to show that it wasn't him in the emotional response of his dream. Mm-hmm. That's a private thing that only you would know.
But you also,
and we got to look into that.
There's no other red herring either. Yeah. Like, you could have easily, you decided to introduce Harvey Dent. You could have easily made the Ripper, made that Two-Face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only other person that was suspected of being the Ripper was Batman, and we, the audience, knew it wasn't. So you weren't misleading us in that, like, man, I really bet it is. Maybe it really is this person.
I even had to do some gymnastics in my mind of thinking like, well, if it's Jack, then maybe it's the Jack character from the 89 Batman. So it's the Joker because it's the great foil. And like,
oh, that could have been
then
interesting.
I just realized, too. Then like I'm doing all this work and I'm like, but nobody's been set up. Like I can't even look back and be like, oh, there was the hint. And so there just wasn't any hint. And so when he does show up and then ultimately, 10, 15 minutes later, he's defeated. It's like, well, we had a villain, and then you shoved a body into the villain persona, not because it deserved it, but because you needed to wrap the story up.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much... Again, sometimes these animated movies, as fun as they are and as good as they are, they're hard to fully dissect in the same way that live-action movies are. But yeah, I think well... I'll save that. I'll save it. What do you got in terms of the Lord speaking through Gotham by Gaslight?
In terms of the Lord, that was good.
Like your spiritual stuff.
There was a line that said, "What does a light in the darkness do? It draws flies."
Spooky.
And in Scripture, Jesus talks about how we as his followers are a city on a hill, mm-hmm. where we are the light of the world. We have been given the gift of salvation. We have Christ in us, and therefore now we reflect that light out into the world, and that's in Matthew 5. But being a light doesn't just attract the lost. It also draws in opposition and distractions and spiritual attacks even. And just like a street lamp on a dark night draws moths and flies, I think living for God will naturally draw unwanted attention and opposition because darkness doesn't like being exposed. And brokenness is drawn to light. And sometimes to be healed, there has to be that fly aspect, that difficulty that is actually drawn to the thing that we have. And so the idea that really came to me was like, living as light for God isn't just about shining. It's about enduring whatever comes towards the light. Sometimes that's easy. Sometimes that's not. It's about endurance, essentially. It's about staying lit, even when the flies of criticism and temptation and spiritual attack are gathering around. That line really just reminded me that the presence of resistance is a sign that the light is on, right? Like, if there's no flies, then is the light on? Well, probably not. And so if you're, not that every difficult thing that comes your way in your life is a test. Sometimes it's just life.
Yeah.
But it was a nice reminder to just sort of think like, yeah, no, I've got something different in me. There's there is a spiritual world around me, and because I'm embodying the light of Jesus, that's not always just going to attract good things. Sometimes it's going to attract bad.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I have never liked the idea that like everything is persecution. Like, my car broke down. It's, I'm being persecuted, or the Lord is testing me. No, it's not. You didn't put oil in your car. You just got a flat tire. Like, you woke up late. So that's why you were late to work, and that's why you got in trouble. You know what I mean? Sometimes things just happen. But I think that the difference is that when we are being tested or when life just happens, we have a light that we can see through those things differently, whether the opposition is, spiritual in nature, or the opposition is just, the physical in nature. And it's just, you got a crappy hand this time. I think that knowing where that light comes from and knowing that you are the light so you can see those things differently is really good.
Yeah. What do you got?
Well, interestingly enough, and we, I know you hate this term, but we did not speak off mic or off camera about this, but mine is somewhat of a companion piece to that.
Hand in hand.
So it is maybe not interlocked, but definitely like pinky locked. It's pinky locked. You see that Bruce is starting to trust Gordon, and you see this relationship start to build where it's like, man, this is a good man in Gotham and someone I can rely on. And then it turns out that the person that he's hunting this whole time is the person that he seemed to be able to begin trusting the most. And I think that when it comes to your faith, you need to be careful where you place your trust. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have people in your life from all walks of life. I have friends who are in, of different faiths, of no faith, different life experience and life stories and ages and situations in their life. But I think that when you know that people will eventually or can eventually let you down, it gives you a higher ability, for me anyway, it gives me a higher ability to trust that God won't. I may not always understand the situation that God has put me in. I was just in a situation with work where I was really frustrated with why God put me in a specific situation and let this happen, only for him to provide a way out, because I had to just let it go and accept that, like, listen, this is what it is and God is going to provide and I have to just move forward with this. And then he did. I think that people will, because of our sin nature, people will always let you down. But for me, my trust in God has not yet let me down. And so being aware of where you're placing your trust, I think, is important when you're a believer, because you need to know that the one thing you can put your trust in and put your faith in is Jesus, and that's not going to let you down. Will it be easy all the time? No. Will it be confusing? Absolutely. But will it let you down when it matters? It really won't. So for me, that was, kind of what it made me think of. And I don't know if that was situational for me for what I was going through when I was watching this, but that's really what stood out for me.
It's good stuff. Let's rate it.
Let's. Why don't you seemed less excited about this, so why don't you kick off your rating, young squire?
I'm still less excited about it.
Yeah, I know.
It was fine.
Hater.
It's like an Affleck Pattinson line. I'll go higher, so I'll give it an Affleck.
All right.
It's okay. It had a great idea. Didn't really execute it great, but it had some fun moments. It was compelling. It was not a waste of 90 minutes, but I'm probably not going to watch it again. And if anybody asks, I'll just say, yeah, listen to our episode about it.
I was a little more generous. Now, where you're walking, now this, I will not shy away from the fact that of the animated Batman movies, this is among one of my favorites because I do really like the comic. I love the setting and the story. The Batman versus Jack the Ripper, I think, is such a cool idea. But where you were walking the Affleck Pattinson line, I was walking the Bale Keaton line because I like it more than you do. I want to lean more towards Keaton,
but you can't.
But I think I'm gonna settle on Bale because after rewatching it, I know that the issues that I have in it could have been fixed fairly easily. Yes. So that I think keeps it from being a Keaton full out. But I think Bale is fair because I do enjoy it. I will probably watch it again. It'll be one of those things I can just put on and enjoy that it's on. But I know that...
Sort of like Fantastic Four.
Kind of. Except that that's terrible. That I think is where the difference is.
Dear audience, tell us what you think. Did you watch this movie? Do you like Jack the Ripper? Do you think Chris is wrong?
Do you like Jack the Ripper?
Leave us a comment.
I'm a big fan. Love that guy. Doing the Lord's work.
Can you imagine, like, the scroll of comments?
Nailed it.
Thank you for listening to this episode. As always, we don't promote violence.
No, not at all. But
just Batman punching people.
That's the only violence I support in things is good guys punching bad guys. But we do hope you enjoyed this episode. This rather more,
condensed
episode. That's the word I was looking for. And also, we didn't say at the beginning, but we hope that you had a happy Easter or a happy Passover or whatever it is you celebrate around this time of year. We hope that you enjoyed your time of either familial or spiritual connection and that it was filling for you, I hope it was nice.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Anywhere else? We're on my mind.
We're on top of things.
Yep.
We're on our fingers on the pulse of things sometimes.
Speaking of on, get us off air right now.
Yeah, I think we gotta wrap this up. I don't have much else to say. But to wrap us up, kids, remember that if you need a quick escape, magicians can be bought, even Houdini. So keep that in mind. See you next time. Did you watch the new Fantastic Four trailer?
Yep.
That actually shows Pedro Pascal in all of his stretchy glory.
Yep. I have a fan theory about what's going on.
Listen, we talked about fan theories already, and we know that they don't get us anywhere. They are, only serve to cause us harm.
I think I'm right, though.
You can think that, but we don't know that there's any accuracy in that.
Haven't been proven wrong yet.
You mean today? Maybe today you haven't been proven wrong.
It's still early in the morning.